Hi, I'm Dr. Larry Malerba, and welcome to today's presentation. Most of us are quite familiar with conventional medical thinking because we've been raised in a world dominated by mainstream medicine. As a consequence, there's a great deal of confusion and misunderstanding in the media and among the general public about alternative approaches to health and healing. Some of those approaches include herbal medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, homeopathy, nutrition, acupuncture, and more. Each has its particular strengths and weaknesses. So I thought it would be useful to compare and contrast mainstream medical theory and practice, which I call old paradigm medicine, with the basic ideas underpinning many holistic approaches to healing, which I call new paradigm medicine. Please realize that this is not a carte blanche endorsement of all alternative therapies, but it is a means by which to understand how the two schools differ in their approach to illness and healing. This is my attempt to help you think outside of that conventional medical box. So let's get started. First, I'm going to create a chart here with old paradigm theory on one side and new paradigm thought on the other. According to old paradigm theory, the human body is a strictly physical entity, not unlike an automobile. Occasionally, it needs a medical mechanic to give it a tune-up, to diagnose a problem, or to repair, remove, or replace malfunctioning or broken parts. From a new paradigm perspective, the mind body is a single entity that transcends our limited understanding of its various interconnected aspects that we arbitrarily label body, mind, and spirit. Although they have separate names, they are in reality all one. Conventional medical science is based on a set of rules agreed upon by a consensus of scientists and practitioners. One such rule is that science is a methodology used to study the natural world. Natural world in this context means material world. Mind and spirit, by definition, are not topics that fall within the domain of natural science. They are not considered part of the material world. Although conventional medicine occasionally gives lip service to the existence of a mind-body connection, it almost always takes a default position from the perspective of the physical body. New paradigm medical science does not recognize the artificial boundary erected by conventional medicine between the physical body on the one hand and mind and spirit on the other. New paradigm science takes the human psyche very seriously. It carefully studies both the psyche and the body in order to understand the roles that they play in illness and healing. Another rule is that conventional medical science emphasizes the importance of objective information while downplaying and oftentimes dismissing the usefulness of subjective information. This bias stems from the fact that only objective information can be detected and measured by the instruments of science, while subjective information cannot. Lab values, blood pressure readings, and diagnostic imaging tests tend, therefore, to garner all of the attention. New paradigm medicine treats objective and subjective information with equal seriousness. Subjective patient experience is not dismissed simply because it cannot be measured. To the contrary, patients' stories about what led to their problems or their descriptions of their symptomatic experiences can often provide the key to treatment strategies. These differences of emphasis often account for patients' perceptions about the two different medical approaches. Many experience conventional medical care as detached, clinical, and impersonal, while holistic care tends to give the patient a feeling that his or her personal input has been given proper consideration. Old paradigm medicine is fundamentally reductionist in orientation. It studies the human body by breaking it down into its constituent parts in the hope of unlocking its secrets. It seeks to simplify health problems by trying to identify their source at some specific location in the body. A reductionist approach to illness often fails to account for the fact that most problems are systemic in nature and far more complex than acknowledged. In this sense, old paradigm treatment often misses the forest for the trees. For example, giving a cortisone injection to a painful arthritic knee ignores the fact that most forms of arthritis are in reality systemic in nature and cannot be reduced and localized to a knee or to any other joint. Injecting the joint often produces only temporary relief because it does not address the underlying systemic disorder. It also carries with it the risk of so-called side effects, which are not really side effects as much as they are the direct result of immunosuppression from cortisone. New paradigm medicine is fundamentally holistic in orientation. It does not view the human body in mechanistic terms as if it were an assemblage of auto parts. It understands that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and it therefore seeks to understand a problem from the broadest possible perspective. In doing so, it tries to account for as many variables as possible. Suppose we ask the same person with the arthritic knee from the previous example about how the pain began. He notes that it started within weeks after the death of his son in a car accident. The pain has gradually gotten worse since, and he admits that he's never gotten over the emotional devastation. From a holistic perspective, it's quite likely that the source of his physical pain lies in his psychological suffering. Psychosomatic phenomena of this nature are far from unusual. In fact, they are more the norm. Local treatment with cortisone may bring temporary relief, but it won't get to the root of the problem, and almost guarantees that this father's suffering will continue in one form or another. From an old paradigm perspective, all symptoms are viewed as unwanted threats. Symptoms have no real purpose or meaning and are to be combated and eliminated by any means possible. The human body is the battleground upon which the war against disease is waged. When pharmaceutical warfare fails to subdue or eradicate target symptoms, the body part in question may be surgically removed. And even though many surgeries are of unquestionable value, it should be a method of last resort. New paradigm medicine understands that symptoms have useful functions that should not be ignored. No symptom is coincidental, and most symptoms are not our enemies. Firstly, symptoms are distress signals that send a message that something is amiss. It is not wise, therefore, to blindly kill the messenger without considering its purpose or intent. Second, all symptoms are, in reality, attempts by the mind-body to heal itself. In most cases, the mind-body accomplishes this goal without any outside assistance. For example, most people recover from their colds and flus, and most cuts and bruises heal on their own, without ever receiving any kind of treatment. However, sometimes the mind-body's effort to heal itself falls short, in which case an illness may take a turn for the worse. In such cases, it may be inadvisable to indiscriminately wage war against symptoms. It may be preferable instead to find ways by which to assist the mind-body in its efforts to heal itself. In the case of the man with the knee pain, it may be better to assist him in the grieving process. If he grieves successfully, his knee pain, which was really a distress signal from his psyche, becomes unnecessary and may fade away on its own. Even situations that appear to require surgery can sometimes be avoided with proper holistic care. According to old paradigm science, there is no unifying energy or force that protects the human body from illness or that serves to assist it in healing. The immune system serves this function in a limited sense, but there is no coordinating principle that unifies the whole. The human body is simply taken to be an assemblage of organs, systems, and parts, but there is no acknowledgement of any innate wisdom or mechanism that promotes self-healing. Most new paradigm schools of thought subscribe to some version of a vitalist theory of health maintenance and healing. In essence, they posit that there is a unifying energetic life force that transcends the material body. Its function is to maintain homeostasis, to resist illness, to catalyze healing whenever necessary, and to ensure vitality. The mind-body possesses a defense mechanism guided by an innate healing wisdom that far surpasses the reach of our scientific knowledge or our holistic understanding. Naturopathy refers to this as the healing power of nature. Eastern medical traditions call it qi or ki. Homeopathy attributes our innate healing capacity to the vital force. Conventional medicine stubbornly denies its existence because it cannot be detected or measured. To acknowledge such a phenomenon would compel it to have to reevaluate its materialist belief system. And yet, almost all healing and spiritual traditions recognize this life-preserving principle. It is that which unifies body, mind, and spirit and maintains health. It is the same intangible phenomenon that departs from the physical body upon the last breath at the moment of death. Without the life force, the material body is just a lifeless sack of bones and protoplasm. So, if all symptoms have no purpose and there is no life force directing and coordinating the defenses of the human organism, then it provides justification for a strategy that consists of fighting symptoms and waging war on disease. Conventional medicine battles illness by utilizing proprietary pharmaceuticals intentionally formulated to counteract, stop, and suppress the body's symptoms. And so we have antipyretics for fever, painkillers for pain, antidepressants for depression, and so on. As we shall see, the net result tends to be a never-ending struggle with vicious cycles of symptoms and the well-known side effects that accompany the drugs used in the war on disease. Sadly, there is little incentive to end the vicious cycle because it tends to be good for business. It almost guarantees a continual stream of patients in need of ongoing care. On the other hand, if there actually is an innate defense mechanism that resists illness and promotes healing, and if symptoms really do have important functions, then it would be of a paramount importance to pay close attention to the intentions of the life force and the purposes of the symptoms that it generates. Herein lies the main difference between new and old paradigm medicine. Rather than combat the life force, new paradigm medicine seeks ways by which to cooperate with it. Homeopathy provides a vivid illustration of this seemingly paradoxical approach to healing. When treating a case of hives, for example, that consists of redness, swelling, itching, and inflammation, highly diluted doses of homeopathic apis, which is a preparation made from the honeybee, can be prescribed. Note the similarity of symptoms produced by a sting from the bee, which includes redness, swelling, itching, and inflammation. This is an intentional strategy designed to accentuate the efforts of the life force, to work with it instead of against it. Although it runs contrary to our conventional ways of thinking, 200 years of experience have proven that this method is quite effective. Now, there tend to be casualties when we wage war on the human body and its symptomatic defenses. Old paradigm medicine often dismisses those casualties as side effects, which is a convenient term designed to downplay the consequences of the campaign to eradicate symptoms. In reality, a side effect is either A, a direct effect of a drug, or B, an indirect effect caused by the suppressive effect of a drug. When a drug brings temporary relief followed by a return of the same symptoms, it's called palliation. When a drug permanently eliminates a symptom by forcibly suppressing it, by new paradigm standards, this is not a cure. It merely creates the illusion of cure. This is because suppression always carries with it the risk of metastasis. In other words, when a drug subdues a symptomatic distress signal, sooner or later the life force may simply redirect its efforts by generating a new distress signal in a new location. For example, Tylenol is given to a child with a viral fever and a runny nose. The fever diminishes, but in its place, a new chest cough develops. Here's another example. A moderately depressed woman experiences some relief while taking an antidepressant. However, she soon begins to complain of headaches. The headaches compel her to seek further medical treatment, at which point she is given an additional prescription for her newly diagnosed migraines. Old paradigm medicine has a strong tendency to deny the connections between such events. To acknowledge the suppressive nature of allopathic treatment would create too much cognitive dissonance for the average practitioner. The typical person on the street recognizes this phenomenon from experience. It's that familiar vicious cycle of symptoms that is best characterized as medical whack-a-mole. You know what I mean? Drug A causes side effect B, which is treated with drug C, which then generates side effect D, and so on. The problem is that while symptom suppression may create an illusion of cure, it has a distinct tendency to erode the overall health of patients over the course of time. New paradigm medicine is acutely aware of the relationships between medical events, and it understands the concept of suppression, mainly because it has a conceptual framework within which to make sense out of such phenomena. Conventional medicine has no such framework. It is sorely limited by its reductionist and materialist beliefs. From the perspective of the mind-body, in which all symptoms of body, mind, and spirit are inextricably connected by a governing life force, it becomes easy to discern what approaches to health are fundamentally suppressive and which ones are not. New paradigm medicine seeks to mimic the healing wisdom of the life force and tries to avoid suppressive measures, except in cases where they are employed as a last resort. It is understood that suppression is not a means to cure. In fact, suppression has a tendency to drive illness deeper into the system. As such, it encourages the development of chronic illness on both physical and emotional levels. True healing moves in a direction opposite to suppression. Okay, I think this is a good place to stop. As you can see, there are some very important differences between the two different schools of thought and their approaches to illness. Thanks for watching. If you like what you've heard so far, please tune into part 2 of this comparative review of old and new paradigm medicine.